Position 1 SEO, always been important. Position 1 in geo, way more important.
Hi there and welcome to From Ideas Results. I'm joined by Chris, as part of our data team here at Sleeping Giant Media, and we're going to be diving into the biggest things happening in the world of data. The first one talking about measurement with AI. So we're seeing a lot of things change when it comes to AI, particularly measurement.
Lots of changes going on in search, and in particular, the drop in clicks. Because we have answer engines, even if you have got people who are using AI overviews or they're using AI mode, they are less likely to click through. In some cases, they're more likely to click through, so branded terms, actually people are more likely to click through. But a lot of the times they're getting the answers. So if your content has how-to or blogs around how people can do things, quite often they won't need to click through because the AI overview, IAM over will say, follow these steps and they're done.
And I remember a statistic that we used to talk about a lot, that people would visit on average 10.2 websites before buying a particular product. And I bet you that's now maybe one.
There was an interesting study from SEMrush that came out last week, which was essentially it's changing behaviors. People are using AI overviews and answer engines to get a lot more research done, but they are still using traditional search. Actually, basically, I was like, yeah, that's very much in line with what I might find, that you're using that to do some research, and then the traditional searches you do are much more technical, but certainly it's in line. And Google are overall saying that they are still seeing growth in search. A lot of Google's growth is driven by image-based search, but overall, search isn't dropping off a cliff, or traditional search isn't dropping off a cliff. AI overviews are the most used answer engine in the world. ChatGPT, obviously very high, it's 350 million weekly users, but AI reviews like 2 billion. It's an insane number of users that are getting in front of that.
From a measurement perspective, what's going to change and what do they need to be aware of and I guess prepare for?
So some important changes, especially around things like clicks. If you have targets based off of how many clicks you're expecting to receive, expect that to change. It does depend what part of the funnel. So anything that is top of funnel, you will very likely see almost nothing in that arena, depending on when we're talking. So Gartner's numbers are by 2026, 25% of searches will happen on answer engines. By 2028, 50%. If you've got something like AI mode, it's going to be much higher. Especially if they're doing what they're already doing, which is changing the browser search to be directly AI.
You're going to be forced to use it.
Very, very in an automatic way. A lot of those clicks that you would have of top of funnel activity, a lot of activity that you might have had around people will come see this content, they'll bounce off and then we remarket to them, is going to be very different. Targets based off of clicks, you will need to adjust significantly. Targets based off things like conversions shouldn't be too heavily impacted. However, it does depend on how those agents change over time. I know you did your grocery shopping recently using agent mode, and we might find that actually it's agents that are coming to visit the site and making purchases, but you still see those purchases. You might just not know where they've come from in the same way that you would have done. The big thing though is not seeing those clicks really changes the way that we will measure things like sessions, conversion rate. It's all about visibility. Are we visible on those answer engines? And because there is nothing like Google Search Console or Google Trends available to us, we have to measure that ourselves. And there's a lot of good tools out there that enable you to see, is there an AI overview on the SERP? Are we appearing in particular answer engines for particular problems?
And things like position. So if you're tracking and monitoring keyword position, will we still track that?
I mean, how you rank in SEO is still really important, just as how you rank in geo will be really important. Position 1 SEO, always been important. Position 1 in geo, way more important. People give a lot of trust to the answers that are given, both by AI overviews and generally answer engines, but they give considerably more trust to that most prominent citation.
So next up, we wanted to talk a little bit about the benefits of using raw data in BigQuery. So can you just give us an overview of what BigQuery is and the benefits that it can bring to that measurement piece?
So BigQuery is essentially a database. It is a table-based database. In this case, we're talking about using it for GA4 data, but you can store anything in there. You can store your entire data warehouse, you can store your sales. In this case, we're talking about GA4. And one of the reasons that we find it really beneficial to have BigQuery is GA4 sometimes does things that are quite odd. It has thresholding where it withholds data because there's not enough of it and it's worried that you might identify an individual. There's sampling when there's too much data and it takes a small sample of it. When you have BigQuery, you have the raw data. So you can then start looking at troubleshooting. What is it? What is the actual data underneath that might be causing the modeling to go off? We have had examples where somebody's reached out and said, I've been doing this activity and I can't see any of it in GA4. And we can run BigQuery and say, oh, there's a couple hundred sessions around that. So it was just too small to appear in what you're looking at. You've also got the power of SQL and a time series based database, which means you can do things like, is there a particular user that is refreshing on specific pages multiple times? You can then add things like rage click events. So is somebody clicking a particular element more than 3 times in 3/4 of a second, which suggests they're getting frustrated. And you can also add things like web vitals, NPS score, which essentially is how quickly does an item load. You can combine those together and start saying, here's some frustration points that are likely to be coming up.
So much richer set of data.
Much richer.
Yeah. So what you're using, you're not using BigQuery. What's your next step? How do we get there?
Yeah. So first thing you'll need is a cloud project, and that is fairly easy to do. Once you've got your cloud project, you will go into GA4 and you connect it. You do need to watch out, because if you lose any billing on that account, it will just stop processing. And when it stops processing, you can't backfill. Only other thing to bear in mind is there are some costs related to it. At first, almost nothing. It'll be pennies. As time goes on, once you've got 5 years worth of data, depending on the size and number of events and users on your site, that will grow. But we're talking tens of pounds, not thousands. And then there are costs for actually processing that data, and that if you do really sophisticated and start doing modeling and it's calling the data many times, that can get into bigger numbers. But generally, if you've got £50, that will be enough to do some really good analysis.
As you'd expect with any API costs. Hope you found that of use. Some really cool stuff. As I said, keep an eye out for measurements, particularly because of the AI world. Everything's going to be changing, driven by the lack of clicks and all the knock-on implications. So start educating yourself, then get ready to educate your board, because your year-on-year reporting is going to be really difficult. That's it from us, and we'll see you again next time.